Are you looking for more information about what your AV provider needs from you as the event organizer or the event planner? Well, this is part 3 of my 5-part series where I lay out 5 areas that you need to have the answers to and then provide that information to your AV provider so that you avoid those last-minute hiccups, headaches, budget surprises, you name it. This is going to be part 3 of 5. Before I jump into it, I'm Logan Clements. I'm a freelance event producer based in Seattle, Washington, but I execute events here and all over the world. I do want to remind you to like, subscribe, turn on that little notification bell so you get notified every single Monday when I drop new videos. I'm also the co-host of the Better Events podcast with fellow event pro Mary Davidson. We dive even more into some of these topics, like talking about AV at your event, or nonprofit fundraising strategies, or relationship management, or post-event processes, you name it, we dive even more in depth. So listen wherever you listen to podcasts. So as I mentioned, this is part 3 of my 5-part series. In this series, we're going to be talking about my third one, speaker tools. But as a refresher, in my first video, all linked below, I talked about how will attendees see and hear your content. Part 2, we talked all about scenic, think lighting and your stage design. And now in part 3, we are going to be talking about speaker tools and diving into understanding more of what you're expecting your speakers to have at your event so your AV provider is more on the same page. And then to tease, number 4 is going to be live streaming and recording, and number 5 is going to be schedule. So those are my next 2 videos after this one. But for part 3, speaker tools. Now, I will say that I anecdotally use the word speaker tools. I will say that is not necessarily like an AV term, but it's something that I use with my clients all the time because I straddle that technical world where I know enough tech to be dangerous, but I am by no means a technical director. But speaker tools, honestly, I don't know, every video has felt so important, but this one to me feels pretty important because each of these items, while they aren't necessarily expensive, they vary in price. Some of these are very inexpensive to very expensive. They are something that the client, you as the event organizer, or the planner might notice if they're not there because you'll have a speaker say something or complain about something. And often it has to do with these speaker tools. So my first speaker tool I'm going to talk about is a clicker. And now I will link, I have done a deeper dive into clicker and a perfect cue versus a USB clicker. But just knowing, does your speaker expect to have a clicker provided? Something to click and advance their content. Again, a perfect cue is going to be more robust. This is a more robust clicker, and a USB clicker would be if your speaker's bringing their laptop, plugging it in from the stage, and then advancing from a very close range. They can use that USB clicker. I also added a pro tip right there. If your speaker is planning on plugging in their own laptop, that is important for your AV provider to know. Often you will be running your AV content from the tech table. Sometimes that's front of house in the back of the room. For more robust shows, there's going to be a whole team of people behind your stage, but it's out of sight is really what it is. So if your presenter is planning on plugging in their own laptop, that is going to have different cables, different signals, transfers, all of that stuff. So make sure you say, is your speaker planning on using their own laptop or driving any content from the stage? But clicker is an important one, and honestly, I have very few events right now that I do that don't involve a clicker. My sporting events don't have clickers involved, but almost every other show I work has a time where they would need a clicker. So making sure this is something that you have included in your quote. My next speaker tool is a speaker timer. This is essentially like, from sports, a shot clock that counts down or up to any time that you decide. This is really important for events that have lots of moving pieces and helps your speakers just know where they are in their program. If you have one speaker talking for an hour, you probably don't need a speaker timer. But if you have multiple speakers coming up on stage, especially if you're trying to do any of the trendy, dynamic, shorter talks, time goes quickly. Something I've learned from YouTube. It is easy to say, oh, I'm going to have a short talk and it'd only be 3-4 minutes. No, it's actually 10 to 12 minutes. So this is something where having a speaker timer is just going to keep your speakers moving on time. It also gives you the flexibility as the organizer to adjust timing on the fly to either make up time or give someone more time. That is something that's just so helpful. And then my third speaker tool that I talk about here is confidence monitor or teleprompter. So this is, how is your speaker expecting to see their notes? And this can be as simple as just they made their slides in PowerPoint, they have notes in that PowerPoint, they want to be able to see their notes. And so this usually involves some monitors that are down in front of the stage, facing the stage. The audience doesn't see them, but the speaker does. And this can be as simple as their notes they've provided to, I've had some speakers this year who really wanted to see their next slide, or it could be more robust, where it's much more of like a talk track or a script, exactly what your presenters are going to say. And your most expensive is going to be your teleprompter, mainly because this comes with a specialized operator with specialized software, and it's a little more robust of a setup. Or if you're someone who followed any of, all the different political talks that happened this year, you're going to see what they call the presidential prompter, which is, to the audience, it looks like just two pieces of glass, but to the presenter standing on the other side, it's actually their wording, and it's a scrolling prompter. So scrolling prompter is different than advancing your slides one and your note slides advance. So there's just, as you can see, so many different ways to show speakers their notes. And this is something, just letting your AV provider know what you're looking for, getting those quotes. And then once you know exactly what those speaker tools are and you've decided on them, sending that to all of your speakers so they're aware, hey, we're not providing a clicker, or we are providing a clicker. We're providing a speaker timer, or there's no way your content is going to be run from the tech table versus run from the room. All of these simple questions can help just save you time in the moment and avoid you having to do any last minute changes. I've definitely been a producer on site for one where we've had to last minute scramble to allow a speaker to run their laptop from the stage. We were able to make it happen. I will say it put a lot of stress on the crew, and it led to some unnecessary maybe budget impacts because that got billed back at the end of the event, even though in the moment we just had to make it happen. So knowing what your speakers are expecting, what you want as the organizer to provide them with as speaker tools, because sometimes you're not going to be able to give everything your speaker wants because everybody's budgets are different. But understanding your speaker tools, though, will help you set up your AV provider for success. But that brings me to the end of part 3 here. Again, in part 1, we talked about how attendees will see and hear your content. Part 2, we talked about scenic. And here in part 3, we just covered speaker tools. Next week, I'm going to be getting into cameras with your live streaming and recording. And then I will end this 5-part series with talking about schedule. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in part 4. Bye.